So this is currently my favorite muscle building workout. And I say currently because it's going to change from time to time. I like to rotate things, keep it interesting. But what I'll do as I'm talking you through this current one is I'll explain the principles behind it as well, because that way you can use this to tweak it and create one that's going to suit you perfectly as well. But to be honest with you, I think you're going to be hard pressed to beat this one. So it's a muscle building program, emphasis on upper body, because at the end of the day, that's what most guys want. 3 days per week, leaving a couple of days to get in some cardio as well, which is still important to me. And the split that I've gone for here is an upper, lower, full body, but with the full body being upper emphasis. So you're pretty much getting in 2 upper sessions a week and then 1.5 lower, which feels like quite a good split for what I want. I was torn between doing 3 full body sessions, which I am also a fan of, and it can work well, but it can also be a lot to cram in for some people. Trying to hit every body part per session, trying to get every body part adequately warmed up. And so as much as I like that, for my favorite one, I'm going for upper, lower, full body. The actual exercises that I'm going to select, I want you to understand why I'm picking these exercises. And there's mainly 2 things that I'm looking for, following on from one of my last videos. One is, can I achieve a significant amount of tension with this exercise? Often, not always, but often this will be your compound movements where you can load the exercise heavy. Things like a hack squat, like a bench press, like a pull-up. This is going to build the majority of my program. The second thing I'm going to look to include is exercises where I'm challenging the muscle through the lengthened position. So this would be something like your RDLs, for example, like getting a really nice stretch on a cable fly. Exercises that put the muscle under a significant amount of load when it's stretched. Because again, these have been shown to create almost like a disproportionate growth effect. So definitely want to make sure that these are sprinkled in throughout as well. What you also can't miss, alongside obviously these important technical elements, is actually are the exercises that you enjoy, that you can see yourself doing week in and week out. You're not going to be skipping them because you can't be asked. Your technique's good and solid. You feel the target muscles working well and engaging properly. Because this could be the best program in the world. If you don't do it, what's the point? So I'll always try and implement exercises that I know I enjoy, even if technically they're not as efficient, not as productive. But if I know I get a lot out of them personally, that goes a long way. So then let's get on to the good stuff. So the upper session, we've got incline Smith machine bench, small incline, 3 sets of 4 to 8, weighted pull-ups, 4 sets of 4 to 8, seated dumbbell overhead press, 3 sets of 6 to 10, cable rows, 3 sets of 6 to 12, cable flies, 2 sets of 8 to 12. We've got 2 sets of overhead cable tricep extensions, 2 sets of 8 to 15, and then a cross cable lateral raise, 3 sets of 8 to 12. So you can see we've got some of that tension producing work in the incline Smith, in the weighted pull-ups, in the seated dumbbell press, and we've got some of that stretch work with the cable flies. And you get a really nice stretch on those cable rows as well if you really let the weight take your arms away from the body. In terms of the lower session, we've got leg press, 3 sets of 6 to 8, RDLs, 3 sets of 4 to 6, leg extensions, 2 sets of 8 to 12, hamstring curls, 2 sets of 8 to 12, and then calf raises, 4 sets of 10 to 15. I know that ideally probably a squat should be in there, but this is one where I'm just not that keen on squats anymore. And as much as they might be a great exercise, they're not one that's great for me personally. So I know I'm going to get more out of a leg press, despite it perhaps not being as optimal. But at the end of the day, this is my workout. I can do what I want. Session number 3, full body with an upper emphasis. We have got some barbell walking lunges in there, 3 sets of 4 to 8 each side. I don't mind a lunge at all, so happy to put them in. Dumbbell bench press, flat bench, 3 sets of 6 to 10. Barbell bent over row, 3 sets of 6 to 10. Paired with dips, 3 sets of 6 to 12. Seated cable flies, 2 sets of 10 to 15. Seated alternating dumbbell curls, 3 sets of 6 to 8 each side. And then again, some cross cable lateral raises, 3 sets of 8 to 12. So what this ultimately means is that we've got around 13 sets of chest exercises, 10 sets of back, 6 sets of side delt, 8 sets of quads, 8 sets of hamstrings, 9 sets of triceps, 8 sets of biceps, some front delt work, obviously in a lot of the bench pressing movements, but also within the seated dumbbell overhead press, also with the dips as well. So a bit harder to put an exact figure on that one because there's some crossover. But you can see that there's a definite upper body emphasis there while still giving the lower body enough sets to meet that minimum effective dose. Chest gets slightly more volume than back, which usually I'd like to try and balance these out. But one, personally, I want to grow my chest a bit more. But two, some of the chest movements, for example, the dips, they're not going to be an out and out chest exercise depending on exactly kind of the angle that your body's at when you're doing them. So I'd say chest and back overall are pretty balanced there. We've got a good mix of some tension producing movements: incline bench, weighted pull-ups, leg press, bent over rows, dips, whilst at the same time having movements in there that are going to load the muscles in a weighted stretch position. We've got your cable flies, your cable rows, your RDLs. So that to me, a really well balanced, structured program for most guys who are looking to build their whole body with an upper body focus while still leaving some days free for cardio and other activities. We're hitting that optimal 10 to 20 sets per week on the major muscle groups, while still hitting the minimum effective dose on the less important muscle groups. But we're starting off on that lower end of the range to build in scope to progress and increase them over time, which is what we want. We've got a mixture of rep ranges, some heavy, low rep work in that 4 to 8 range. Some exercises we're going as high as 15 reps, which again means you've got some heavy work there to focus on creating that tension, and some lighter work on your isolation movements where maybe you want to be a bit more deliberate, a little bit more controlled. However, again, like I've said before, the rep range matters less than actually how close are we pushing to failure. Okay, so remember, that bit's got to be key. That's got to be in there for you to see the results from this program or whatever program it is that you're doing. Are we pushing close to failure, and are we doing more and more week on week? And in terms of that, in terms of progression then, so actually on a lot of my compound lifts, I follow more of like a wave progression. But if you were going to go and implement this today, I'd probably stick to double progression, which is a bit simpler to just go away and do, which basically means we operate within the rep range. So for example, we work within 4 to 8 on Smith machine incline bench. You will use the same weight for all 3 of those sets once you've done your warm-up sets that don't count. And if you can do 3 sets of 8 and you hit the top of the rep range on all 3 of those sets, next time you're in the gym, you're going to go heavier. If you don't hit the top of the rep range on all 3 of those sets, you stick with that weight week in, week out until you can, at which point then you make a small increase and you keep progressing in this manner. So the double progression comes from the first thing we progress is the reps until you can hit the top of the rep range, and then you progress the load. With the new load, you'll stick with that until you can progress to hit the top of the rep range on all of your sets, and then we increase the load again. That's a really straightforward and simple way of progressing your training. All it means is you need to assign a rep range to each exercise. And that's it. That is currently my favorite muscle building workout, and I imagine it would work pretty well for you too. But like I said, if there's exercises that you're not keen on or you don't have access to in your gym, then you can take the principles from this and use it to swap out exercises that you can do, that you do enjoy, or that you do have access to, and make your own favorite training program. So hopefully you found this useful. If you have, like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.